Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to basically take you through complex information. We look at reports, research, news, and pull out the key bits, the stuff that really helps you get informed fast.
And today, our focus is Ghana. We've got this really interesting set of reports from the IMANI Center for Policy and Education. All came out May 18th to 24th, 2025.
Yeah.
And they really put a spotlight on some, well, pretty critical governance issues the country was dealing with then.
Exactly. Their criticality analysis, it gives such a great overview covering 6 areas.
That's it. Policy and administration, transparency, accountability, anti-corruption, peace and security, human rights and justice, and even like Ghana's international relations.
So broad scope, but we're going to drill down a bit.
Yeah, we're looking at 4 specific reports that stood out. The one on national security operations, the NIB.
Right, the political twists and media reporting one.
Exactly. Then there's Empty Streets, about decongestion in Accra and other cities. Then the Accra flooding report, blaming the poor drainage system.
A perennial issue, unfortunately.
And finally, one on how opposition parties can help safeguard Ghana's democracy.
Okay. And our goal here isn't just to, read the headlines back.
No, definitely not.
We want to get underneath, understand the root causes, the implications, what this all means for governance in Ghana and for the people living there.
Sounds good.
So let's jump right into that first one, Ghana's national security operations. What's the main concern they're raising?
Well, the core worry is really about how the National Intelligence Bureau, the NIB, and other agencies are carrying out their operations.
I do it. Okay.
Yeah. The forcefulness, the way the media covers it, and then how it all gets interpreted politically. That's the crux of it.
And there were specific examples highlighted, weren't there? I remember reading about Chairman Wantumi's place.
That's right. That operation, and also searches at the homes of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and the ex-Bank of Ghana Governor, Dr. Ernest Addison.
So, high-profile figures. What was the issue with those specific needs?
The report suggests that, look, even if these actions are legally sound, the manner they're executed in, very visible armed officers, limiting people's movement, things that feel intimidating.
Right, the optics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That can easily create this impression that it's politically driven. It raises that big question. Are state bodies acting impartially, or are they seen as, well, political tools?
That's a fine line, isn't it? The how being just as critical as the what. And the report really stresses the media's role in all this.
Oh, absolutely. Hugely important. The analysis points out the language used in headlines, words like raid, storming, siege.
Yeah, very loaded terms.
Very loaded. And that kind of language, it naturally ramps up public anxiety.
Yeah.
It feeds into this narrative that these aren't standard procedures, but, political attacks.
And that shapes public opinion long term.
It does. It affects trust in security agencies and, frankly, in the media, too.
The report even contrasted that with reporting in, say, the U.S. or other Western democracies, right? Mentioning FBI searches involving figures like Trump or Biden.
Yeah, that was an interesting point. The language tends to be more neutral, search, investigation, less drama.
Which arguably allows for a different public reaction.
That's the argument. The more sensational reporting in Ghana might be deepening divisions, making it harder to see these events as just potentially normal accountability within the law. It kind of erodes trust.
And the political dimension is clear. The main opposition, the NPP, claimed these operations against former officials were politically motivated.
Precisely. And that immediately throws fairness and impartiality into question. The report mentioned Professor Kwasi Anning's warning about how even the perception of bias in security work can seriously damage the state's credibility with its own citizens.
So, boiling it down, what's needed to build or maybe rebuild public trust in these security operations?
The report really hammers home the need for institutional transparency.
Okay. What does that look like?
It means sticking to due process, no exceptions. Applying the law consistently, fairly, and crucially, clear, proactive communication from the agencies themselves.
So explain what's happening.
Yes. Reduce the ambiguity, be open. That's key to countering partisan spin and keeping public confidence.
Okay, let's shift gears. The second report. Empty Streets, How Not to Decongest Ghana's Capital and Major Cities. This gets into urban planning, but with an economic angle. What's the core argument?
The basic idea is, everyone agrees Accra needs better order, less traffic congestion, but the way it's being done might be hurting the informal sector. And that sector is, well, it's a massive part of Ghana's economy. The main point is that good urban planning has to factor in people's livelihoods.
So it's not if decongestion is needed, but how it's done. And the report really highlights the role of informal traders, street vendors, market sellers, trotter drivers.
Exactly. These folks aren't just like a side issue. They're a whole economic ecosystem. If decongestion just pushes them out without alternatives,
then it causes real hardship.
Real hardship. Lost income, less convenience for shoppers, local commerce takes a hit. There's even a risk, the report says, of Accra's central business district becoming sort of sterile, less vibrant.
Did the report look at how other cities handle this balance between order and informal economies?
It did. It brought up some interesting examples. New York City, for instance, they have designated zones for vendors, permits, seasonal markets.
Okay, integrating it.
Right. London was another example, areas like Covent Garden or Borough Market where formal and informal trade kind of blend together with pedestrian spaces and city design.
Right, those are lively places.
And Marrakesh with its organized souks market spaces that allow trade without totally disrupting city flow. The takeaway from these is integration, structure, not just removal.
So finding smart ways to weave informal trade into the city fabric rather than just clearing it out, what were the specific suggestions for Ghana?
Recommendations focused on creating proper designated vending zones, maybe with basic infrastructure, also things like time-based rules for trading.
So specific hours, maybe?
Could be. And encouraging public-private partnerships to really bring the informal sector into the planning process. It's about support and structure, not just eviction.
Makes sense. Okay, report number 3. Flooding in Accra. The title, Poor and Inefficient Hydro Drainage System is Major Cause of Floods in Accra, puts the blame squarely on infrastructure.
It does. While heavy rain is obviously the trigger, the report strongly argues the root cause is the drainage system itself. It's inadequate, poorly maintained.
Just not up to the job.
Not for a modern growing city like Accra. It's mostly open gutters, shallow drains, a real patchwork. Not like cities with proper underground sewage and stormwater systems. It just can't handle the volume of water.
And it's not just the design, but blockages are a huge issue too.
Massive issue. Plastic waste, general rubbish, people just dumping stuff into the drains. It blocks them up constantly.
And the city clearing efforts aren't enough.
Apparently not enough to keep pace with the scale of the problem. Plus, public behavior around waste disposal is a big factor too.
And then there's the construction issue on top of that.
Yeah, that's critical. Illegal building, or maybe just poorly regulated building, on natural waterways and floodplains.
Filling in the areas where water naturally goes.
Exactly. As Accra grows, buildings pop up in these areas, reducing where rainwater can soak in or flow away. It just puts more pressure on the drains that do exist. And often, zoning laws aren't strictly enforced.
The report describes some pretty grim consequences of this flooding beyond just wet feet.
Oh yeah, far beyond. Tragically, people have died. Gant East, Adenta were mentioned. Infrastructure gets damaged, roads, bridges. Businesses lose money, especially small informal ones.
And health risks too.
Big time. Waterborne diseases like cholera, malaria. It's a serious public health concern. Plus, all that stagnant, waste-filled water is an environmental hazard. It disrupts everything.
Did the report offer examples of cities doing better on flood control?
It did. Mentioned New York and Tokyo investing heavily in huge underground tunnel systems, big long-term solutions.
Right.
London uses things like sustainable urban drainage, SUDS, and permeable surfaces trying to manage water more locally. And Melbourne has community warning systems and really focuses on proactive drain maintenance.
So there are different approaches that work.
Definitely. It shows multifaceted solutions are possible.
So for Accra, what are the main recommendations to tackle this flooding problem?
It calls for a major long-term overhaul of the drainage system. Think modern underground systems with enough capacity.
Big investment.
Huge, but necessary. Alongside that, much better waste management, including regular effective drain clearing, stricter enforcement of zoning laws, stop building on waterways.
Okay.
Plus public education on waste disposal. And using tech like satellite imaging for better risk assessment, it needs a combined effort.
Right. Okay, our final report. How Ghana's opposition parties can safeguard its envious democracy. This focuses on the role of the opposition.
Absolutely. It frames opposition parties not just as rivals, but as essential parts of a healthy democracy. They're watchdogs, right?
Holding the government accountable.
Exactly. Offering alternative policies, giving voice to different views. They perform that crucial police patrol function, scrutinizing decisions, exposing corruption, making sure policies serve the country.
Always asking the tough questions.
That's their job.
Now, the report did touch on challenges for the main opposition, the NTP, especially after losing the 2024 election.
It did. That loss obviously meant a period of rebuilding. The report suggests they need to regain public trust, show they're focused on public service.
And come up with solid policies.
Yes. Credible, innovative solutions for the country's economic and governance problems. They need to show they're a viable alternative with real plans.
What about the smaller opposition parties? What hurdles do they face in Ghana's system?
Well, the big challenge is just getting heard, gaining influence in a system dominated by the two giants, NDC and NPP.
Right, the two-party dominance.
Yeah. And the report also notes sometimes their message can seem inconsistent, especially if they shift positions when moving from opposition to potentially being in government. That can affect long-term credibility.
So, given the general decline in trust in political parties that's often talked about, what specific strategies does the report suggest for opposition parties, big or small, to rebuild trust and strengthen democracy?
It lays out several pathways. First, really strong grassroots connections, being present in communities, understanding local issues.
So not just staying in the capital.
Exactly. Tailoring policies using town halls, social media, working with civil society. Second, for smaller parties, forming coalitions or strategic partnerships to have more impact.
Strength in numbers.
Potentially. Third, developing really clear, actionable policy solutions, not just criticism, but detailed plans. Fourth, using modern communication, especially digital, to reach people, particularly younger voters.
Makes sense.
And finally, internal reforms within the parties themselves, making sure they're democratic, transparent, merit-based. That builds trust from the inside out.
It's interesting how all these pieces connect, isn't it? Security, urban planning, infrastructure, the political opposition. They all feed into the overall picture of governance.
They really do.
The IMANI Center did offer some overarching recommendations that kind of tie it all together. Can you give us the quick summary of those?
Sure. 4 main takeaways. 1, transparency and impartiality in security operations are paramount. Needs objective media reporting, maybe independent oversight for security forces.
Okay.
2, rethink ACRA's decongestion. Focus on designated trading zones, involve the community, invest in infrastructure, sort out waste management.
Got it.
3, a massive overhaul of ACRA's drainage. Modern systems, rigorous maintenance, better urban planning, community education on waste.
Right, the flooding fix.
And 4, for opposition parties, rebuild credibility. Engage at the grassroots, form coalitions if needed, develop clear policies, be transparent internally, use modern communication, and really lean into their parliamentary oversight role.
So wrapping this deep dive up, it's clear these governance issues in Ghana are, well, they're complex and really interlinked. How security ops are handled affects political trust. Urban planning impacts the economy and resilience to things like floods. Flooding links back to infrastructure and planning choices. And the strength of the opposition underpins the whole system's accountability.
Absolutely. Understanding these connections, the factors behind them, it's crucial if you want to grasp Ghana's development path and how strong its democracy really is.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, our listener. Thinking about everything we've discussed, security, city planning, infrastructure, politics, if you had to pick one single factor, what do you think is the most critical thing for Ghana to focus on in the next few years to really strengthen its governance and improve life for its citizens?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
It makes you think about the roles everyone plays, doesn't it? Citizens, the government, other groups, all have a part in shaping the future.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Hope it's giving you some useful insights.
Yes, thank you for exploring these issues with us here on The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.